Hi, I'm Mylette,
And I'm Anne Marie.
and today we're going to be talking about Cancer 101.
This is the new normal.
All right, so Cancer 101. Let's start off with the journey, okay?
Let's first start off with lowering your risk.
Okay, yeah, that's actually
You know
a
what I'm
good point.
saying?
Yes.
Because we talk about prevention a lot, but the reality is sometimes you can't prevent cancer.
Right.
It just comes at you. But there are ways to lower your risk and make sure that you're healthy, for God forbid you ever get diagnosed. Eating healthy, exercising, being mindful of your body, taking care of yourself, and by your whole self, I mean not just physically but mentally. Um, really just being mindful of who you are in your body and listening to it so that if anything comes up, you are well aware of what's going on.
That's a really good point. And also, if there's anything you can do now for the future in terms of just the healthier choices that you might be making, maybe it's not smoking or not drinking too much. Everything in moderation.
Absolutely. That doesn't mean that you can't eat a bag of Twizzlers, because I definitely eat a bag of Twizzlers. However, it's also about maybe adding some healthy fruit and some vegetables into your life to modify those Twizzlers that you might be consuming.
You got to add that broccoli in there for
Yeah,
sure.
you sure do. You sure do.
All right, so you've just been diagnosed. What are some of the things that you should be looking out for?
Well, for one, is bringing someone to your appointments. You are overloaded, your mind is racing, you are not mindful. You need someone to actually listen to what the doctor is saying, the questions that they're asking, and maybe even taking notes. I would also say that it doesn't necessarily have to be a spouse or a partner. It could be a really good friend that maybe knows a little, is more knowledgeable to medical information, someone that's almost disconnected so that they don't always put forth a personal perspective on it. They can kind of look at things more broadly.
Yeah, that's a really good point because there's so much information being thrown out at you that you want to be able to have someone or maybe even record it, but like someone to be able to guide you afterwards and say, okay, this is what the doctor said. Don't forget, this is, it's because otherwise it's in one ear, out the other.
Absolutely.
It's just way too much information. And first of all, you're like the shock of the news is already enough that you're still processing that. And so you're not even thinking about what else is being said.
Yeah. And don't be afraid to get a second opinion. There's lots of time. I mean, cancer was growing inside of you. It took time to get there. So you have to maybe seek a second opinion, not because you don't trust your doctor, but to see what other options are out there. And maybe another doctor has a different perspective or a different plan or has different education around it. Doesn't mean you're going to go with that second doctor. It just can help validate what you're going through.
Yeah, that second opinion is really important because without going too much into my story, I had two different opinions. And one was, like full mastectomy, and the other one was let's do a lumpectomy. So that's very different. And the recovery time for both is also different. So a second opinion is definitely something that I would say you want to do. And even a third opinion sometimes.
Absolutely.
And then at the end of the day, they might all be the same. But then it's also almost like an interview with your doctor to see who you feel most comfortable with.
Exactly. And if you are not comfortable with that doctor, you do not have to go with that doctor. That is really important. You have to have a connection or at least feel comfortable enough to share things with your doctor that you probably weren't really talking about before. Charting your health the minute you're diagnosed, watch your headaches, your eating habits, your fatigue, all of that stuff. Keep it charted so that when you go to your doctor, you can present them with all this great information that helps them with your diagnosis.
And then also making sure that you request copies of whatever results you get.
Absolutely.
It just makes it easier for any other doctors that you have to go to, that you have that information already handy. The doctors can request it from another doctor, but if you have everything there, it just kind of helps speed up the process.
For sure. And I always say that it's your medical history. You're allowed to have that, and you should have it. And you should keep it in one binder, folder, whatever it is, so that you have it all with you to reference back. Because if you go to a different doctor, they may have missed something in your chart that you know is there. Like being really educated, and it can empower your process throughout the whole thing, because you have to advocate for yourself sometimes. You really do. You only spend about 15 minutes sometimes with your doctor. That's a short amount of time. So you have to come in armed with your what's been going on in your health and your medical history right there with you, so that you can present it in a timely fashion.
Yeah. And don't forget to ask questions, like tons and tons of questions. And there are no stupid questions. No. Whatever it is, like, is it going to hurt? How am I going to be able to sleep at night if you're getting surgery? Is there special clothing I need to wear? Whatever it is, don't be afraid of asking questions.
Yeah, and you can actually ask your doctor to slow down. Like, slow down, let me process what this is. Let me formulate some more questions. The other thing that is really important to understand is, while you may go into that doctor's appointment with 10 questions and they may answer those 10 questions, you're going to come out with 10 more. It's not a controlled diagnosis, because every time you go, something might change. It's just the process of cancer. It truly is. You may have gone in there and thought, this is early stage, this is whatever it is, and then come back and you're more advanced stage, maybe not stage 4, but you are more advanced, and that can be shock. So just understand that they're getting information as you are having tests, biopsies, blood work. That is how they are going to actually formulate your full diagnosis.
And is this when you get diagnosed or when you're in treatment that you get a nurse navigator?
A good hospital will give it to you right when you're diagnosed, so that they can help you process all that. And another thing that is something that a community member had said to me is, they had one credit card that was completely dedicated to their co-pays and any bills and stuff that they had, so they could keep track of all their medical expenses, which is really important at the end, for tax reasons, for your insurance reasons, whatever it is. But having that one card that everything is on, you don't have to search things, and you can say, oh, that's right, I paid for this on X day, because you are going to be so overwhelmed with everything else in your life. You have to try to find a way to stay organized. And these are things you can control. You can't control what happens at that doctor's appointment, but you can control how you go in with your education.
Right. And I want to go on to the nurse navigator a little bit more, just because I think it's really important that a nurse navigator is there to really kind of help you navigate all of your appointments, help you address any questions that you might have after the fact. So did you have one?
I did not have a nurse navigator.
Okay.
I did not have one. And it really bummed me out, because I know people who did, and I know how helpful that was. They even can help you with organizations that are out there that can help you financially. They can help you find community, which is really important to talk to someone who's been diagnosed. Talking to people who have been diagnosed is almost more important than Googling, because Google sends you down a rabbit hole, and you can start looking at information that has nothing to do with your diagnosis, because you've searched and searched and you find yourself on these pages. However, if you connect with someone who's been through what you've already gone through, they can help you in a more personal way in sharing their experiences. But it also does help you, because you can see that if that person got through all of this stuff, that as hard as this is and how much it's going to suck, you can get through it too, in some way.
Yeah. I had a nurse navigator, but I don't think I took full advantage of it. So that's why I want to kind of mention it. Exactly. Yeah. So do take advantage of that, because they're super helpful, especially whenever you have so much stuff you're already worrying about. They're going to help you ease some of that burden.
Yeah. And to her point, and I don't know the reason why you didn't really utilize her, but I think sometimes we feel like, oh, we don't want to burden them. I don't want to be another case for them. No, that's their job. They're there to help you. And that can be hard, asking for help like that, especially if you're the person who's usually, organizing things and maintaining things in your life. Letting someone else help you through this is important, and you have to do that, because it's for your benefit. It truly is.
Yeah, So the reason I didn't use her as much is because I didn't know what to use her for. Right. And I didn't fully understand. But years later, I understand the purpose of it, of them. So yeah, definitely take advantage.
Yeah. And then once you do get that initial diagnosis, it's when all the other stuff comes in. They'll start scheduling you for scans and for blood work and for different tests, maybe genetic testing, biopsies, whatever it is. Staying really organized and on top of that, and having someone with you is important. You may feel like, oh, I can just go to this CAT scan myself, or I can go to this MRI myself. No, bring somebody with you. Let someone support you. Maybe You know, because you're anxious. You're anxious going in because you're scared about the results. You're anxious afterwards because you're scared about the results. Go to lunch, go for a walk after or before. Find ways that you can, let that anxiety out a little bit. And I have to say that I think a lot of people feel like they don't need that. They just like you don't know if you needed the navigator, and you don't know if you need someone to go with you. Why not just bring somebody? Because you may realize down the road that you really did need somebody there. And then I don't want to say it's too late, but people want to help you. Let them help you.
Not going into like full story, but there were so many other questions that this person helped me answer and made me aware of that I would then go back to my doctor with. So, that's another way of thinking about it.
And also, I know that when you're diagnosed, you almost feel like, I don't want to reach out to that person because they've been through a lot, and I don't want to, be another story for them to have to listen to. The truth of it is, I do this because that helps me. It helps me get through everything I've gone through by sharing what I went through, because it helps that person. So it's almost like a bit of therapy for someone who is an advocate and sharing their story publicly.
Yeah. And you mentioned this previously about jotting down stuff, but also like just journaling. So how are you feeling the days you were going? Mm-hmm. And I did that at the beginning too. Or actually, maybe not at the beginning. I did it a little bit later, but then trying to recall everything that I was doing made it more difficult. Mm-hmm. And now I do have something that I can go back to and say, oh, I started doing this right back then. So it's really helpful to, and if you're not a good writer, it doesn't matter because I'm not a good writer either, but it's more about like, on this day I felt this.
Right.
On this day I did this. And it just helps to be able to go back to it.
Yeah. And when you do that, it doesn't have to be a whole, diary where you're pouring your heart out. It can be as simple as that. Today I didn't feel good, but I also didn't eat right, and I had to bring the kids to soccer practice, and then I had to cook dinner. Like, really look at it, and it's going to help you when you get to that next part of treatment and say, okay, on Wednesdays, I can't pick these kids up because I have treatment that day. I need somebody to help me. Like, you can really look at a calendar and say, this is what I need. Because the next part when you're diagnosed is finding someone that's going to help you through with that. Now, that if you don't have people in your life, that's where a nurse navigator can come in and say, okay, you need a caregiver to come. We can bring a visiting nurse in. We have a program here for X, Y, and Z. You will see what you need if you are writing it all down like that.
So we've been diagnosed. Now we're going to go into treatment. How should we go about that?
Well, I mean, you do have to plan it out. You have to go into that methodically, because, we plan so many things in our lives. You have a business that you run. I have kids, and I have to plan out I have to organize their whole life, dinners and all of that. If you are remodeling your house, you put a blueprint together. The same thing is with this. You need a whole plan that you can look at and be able to say, okay, this is what I need. Not what you want, but what you need at that moment. And it can really help as you go into treatment to understand, all right, I need a meal brought to me on this day, or I need to do takeout, whatever it is. I need a ride. I need, a glass of wine.
Laundry done.
Laundry done. Actually, Myla, I'm glad you said that, because we think we can still do stuff through all of this. And you can. I am not saying that you can't. However, doing laundry seems so tedious. Doing the dishes in the sink seems so tedious. Asking someone to help do that just takes that one extra load off of what you're going through, and you can actually focus on your health and what that treatment is going to do and how you're going to get through it. And talking to other people to plan that out. If you're going through chemo, talk to people. What was in your chemo bag? What did you bring to chemo treatment? I made sure that I had candy in there. I had a book. I had a blanket. I had socks. I had lotion. I had biotin because my mouth got dry. I had plastic utensils because the metal taste in your mouth really affects that, and you want to be able to use plastic. I knew the next day I was going to have a chemo headache, so I didn't plan anything that day. I made sure that, people were coming by to help me out, excuse me, with anything that I had going on. But you're not going to know that without talking to people. Yes, a nurse navigator can really help you. Your doctor can help you. But the truth is, the community is where you learn your hacks.
Yeah, because they're the people who are going through it or have gone through it. So you said blanket and you said socks. The reason for that is because you can get cold. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And hospitals.
Well, yes, but and they will give you a warm blanket and stuff. But I remember being like, I'm never going to be cold because I'm always hot. No, I was freezing, 100%.
Another part of this is telling your friends and family.
For sure. And that could be very, very difficult. And there's so many ways to do it now. You can have someone else tell.
I did that.
If you can't say it out loud, it is okay to have somebody else tell. There's no right or wrong way in doing this. This is how you are going to handle it. You have to do what's best for you, for your family, and for your friends. Just because somebody posted it on Facebook and that's how they shared it doesn't mean that that's how you want to do it. If someone sends it in a text doesn't mean that's how you want to do it. Someone sat their whole family down. It doesn't matter. Talk to people. Ask them how they went about telling people, because you may get an idea that you didn't think could work, and it does work. And I think the bigger part to that is you can't be hard on yourself. Just because Lucy posted on Facebook and you don't want to doesn't mean that you have to. Being diagnosed is hard enough, and putting pressure on yourself, that it was your fault that you didn't, eat healthy enough, that you smoked those cigarettes, you took birth control, you drank too much, you didn't exercise enough. Look, that's in the past. You can't go backwards. You have to go forward, but you also have to stay in the moment. Yep, those things happen. But what are you going to do right now? You can maintain a healthy lifestyle right now while you're going through this and worry about that stuff later. Don't be hard on yourself. The cancer is going to be hard enough.
And don't compare yourself to anyone's
Absolutely not.
cancer either, because what they did or what they're doing or how they found out or how they're going through it is very different from yours. There is no book that states how you should do everything. And like Anne-Marie said, it's your cancer. You do it the way that it's best for you. So I did find that having someone else tell my family and tell my friends was easier, because you kind of choke up. Yeah. And so it's easier for someone else to just say it.
It's hard to be diagnosed. It's even harder to say it out loud.
Oh,
it truly
God.
is. And comparing yourself is a rabbit hole you don't want to go down, because everybody's chemical makeup is different.
And when it comes to treatment too, I wanted to add, because it was difficult for me, is injections. So, you might get a port, and a port is going to really help make things a lot easier when you're getting treatment, because otherwise you're going to be getting injections and it might not work on this arm. Then they might, and if you had surgery on this hand, they are going to try to avoid this hand, so they're going to go for this one. They might need to use your hand. You're going to get used to, I guess what I'm trying to say is get used to getting poked.
Yes.
And if they're not telling you to get a port, you might want to talk to your doctor about getting one, because it does help out.
But some people don't get a port. And I'm so glad you said that, because I didn't get a port. I did use, they used my veins. They did destroy my veins, but I couldn't get one. I have MS, so they were worried about other, issues around that. So you don't know anybody's comorbidities with it. So you have to be mindful that person got it for X reason, that person didn't. Just because that person didn't get one doesn't make it less for them. That was their process. I think that's the other part to this is it's not just about comparing our journeys, but it's also being a little jealous of what other people got and what you didn't get. Don't worry about that. Trust me. It's all going to flow to the same end result is, the same. So you've been diagnosed, you're getting a treatment plan, and now you have a whole bunch of doctors that you never had before. I think that was the hardest part, is managing them all, because it's not just, your general practitioner, it's your oncologist. You might have to see an endocrinologist. You might have to see a dermatologist. You might have to see a dentist, an eye doctor. All of that stuff comes into play. And assembling them and making sure that they all work together is very, very important. Some doctors' offices, your scan results might not transfer into the other computer. So like Mylette said in the beginning, make sure you bring that with you so that there is no backup in your, when you go to your visit.
And make sure that whenever you go to any doctor, that you are telling them that you are a cancer patient at this point.
Yes.
Because there might be different protocols that they need to do, or things that they need to keep in mind, for whether it's, the reason I said it is because you mentioned dentist, right, or a dermatologist. So, maybe that spot that they have been checking out, might now take a different meaning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're so right about that. Like, really let all of your doctors know what's going on, because you just don't know what else your body is. And you're also you're on like your wires in your brain are fried a little bit, so you might not be thinking it through completely, but really look at the doctors that you see and how you can how they can work with your current oncologist to figure out if there's anything else going on. And I also think that it's not just about your medical doctors, it's about your care team. You know, whether it's a spouse or a partner or your parents or your aunt or your best friend, whoever it is that's going to help you with all of this, your nurse navigator, you know, partnering you up with somebody that can help care for you. Let them know what you actually need. What do you need from them? Because they really do want to help. And if you don't tell them your needs, they're going to end up doing stuff because they want to help that can actually be a little annoying to you, which could cause for a little friction. So really let them know what you need so that they can come back and say, all right, I will give you that, but this is also what I need. And both of you need to be taking care of yourselves because that caregiver cannot help you if they are not caring for themselves. And you cannot really let that caregiver do what they need if you are not focusing on who you are.
Yeah. And don't hold back anything.
No.
Yeah. It's so no matter how embarrassing you think it might be, share it because at this point your life is going to become pretty much an open book to a close group of people from your friends and family and team to your medical team. So don't be embarrassed by any of that, even though it might
They've seen it all. Don't worry about it.
At some point it's just going to be like, it's just, another vein or it's this.
It is funny how that happens.
Like, exactly.
And I think it's important for any caregiver watching this to really let your loved one know what you need because caregivers do not get the attention I think that they should. They're going through a lot. There's a lot of guilt. There's a lot of anger. There might be a little bit of sadness mixed in with that. And to manage all of those emotions can be difficult. And the best way to do that is to let the person know, look, I need to take 10 minutes. I need to just go outside, regroup before I come back in and I can help you. That's okay. That is really okay. And actually, you're probably doing your loved one more of a benefit by doing that.
That's a really good point because, as a caregiver, you kind of feel helpless.
Yeah.
And if you're going through cancer yourself, right, you kind of, know what you're feeling. Or you might know what you're feeling, right? And you kind of learn to take kind of ownership of this journey. And the caregiver just feels kind of helpless in what they can do. So they're going to try to overdo some things, which sometimes might not help them because if they're getting sick, they're not going to be able to help you, as you were mentioning. Yeah. So just keeping that kind of like a balance there and keeping that in mind.
I think the last really important point, something you just said, you may not know what you're feeling. You may have no idea. It's because it's such a host of mixed emotions. You're pissed, you're sad, you feel guilty for both caregiver and a patient, but you may not be able to have the words to describe that. And it is totally okay to not know what you're feeling. It is okay. This is the new normal. What's yours?
All right. I got something small. Skin protection, sunscreen, very, very, very important. You want to try to prevent as much as you can that you can control. And I think this is such an easy one to do. Sure. I get so angry at myself, like if I burn and I usually don't because I'm always putting, I lather myself up before I come out. So important. And melanoma is actually a really awful cancer. Yeah. I mean, they all are, but just it's not something, it's so preventable that I think that's what makes it even worse.
Right. I grew up using baby oil and laying on a reflective blanket.
Oh my God.
Forever. I would get so dark in the summer that I did not look my nationality. But that's how I grew up. That generation kind of did that. We probably didn't know the facts, but we weren't utilizing them.
but I have kids who burn very easily, so that, I used to slather them up, and then I just put it on myself. It was like a no-brainer. And there's so many great sunscreens out there that smell good, because smell is important. That smells really good. But I did have basal cell removed after radiation.
Oh.
And, that's one of the risks when you have radiation, is that you can develop basal cell from it afterwards. Oh. I love the sun. I love sitting in the sun, so I need to have a sunscreen on, especially after going through treatment. I will never forget that first round of radiation. I was sitting outside like I always did. It was kind of like my chill out. And I had such a rash on my arms. It felt like my skin was on fire. It felt like anything that touched it, it was like burning almost. Well, I was burning, and it was because I was going through radiation. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to. They probably told me I wasn't supposed to sit in the sun, but it just didn't register. And it just made me realize how much your body changes after a diagnosis with all the treatments that you go through.
Wow.
But skin care is very important.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I do want to say, too, that look for one that's like coral reef safe, right?
Yeah, right.
Be careful, because we don't want to destroy our planet while we're protecting
She's
ourselves.
healthy and earth conscious. We gotta love her.